Let me ask you something. What if the biggest problem you're facing in your career, or maybe even at home, is a problem you literally cannot see? Today, we're going to dive into Leadership and Self-Deception, a book that tackles this exact hidden issue, and it all starts with three little words designed to stop you in your tracks.
Just imagine it's your first day as a new leader at this company called Zagrum. You sit down, you're ready to get started, and the very first thing they say to you is, "You have a problem." I mean, what a way to start, right? It's designed to be a shock to the system, because the problem they're about to talk about, it's something incredibly personal.
And this is the question at the heart of it all. Think for a second about the most frustrating conflicts in your own life. You know, the ones where you just feel like you're talking to a brick wall. What if the real issue isn't the other person? It isn't the situation, but it's a blind spot you have about yourself.
That blindness is the real issue. See, the book makes this really powerful point that most of the leadership challenges we think we have, things like bad communication, low morale, constant arguments, they're not actually the real problem. They're just symptoms of something much, much deeper.
This is just perfectly summed up by one of the characters in the book. He has this breakthrough where he realizes that, his poor performance and his habit of blaming everyone else, that wasn't it. The real problem, the bigger problem, was that he was completely blind to the fact that he was the one causing the mess in the first place.
So, the book has this fantastic metaphor for this blindness. It calls it a kind of disease, a disease of perception. And to really get our heads around how this works, we've got to take a trip back to the 1800s and hear the wild story of a doctor named Ignaz Semmelweis.
In the hospital where Semmelweis worked, the maternity ward was a terrifying place. 1 out of every 10 women who came there to give birth died from this mysterious thing they called childbed fever. A 1 in 10 chance of dying? Just let that sink in. It was a full-blown crisis, and he was desperate to figure it out. So Semmelweis, he investigated everything. He looked at the food, the air, how women gave birth. Nothing made a difference. Then a tragic breakthrough. A buddy of his, another doctor, dies from the exact same fever after accidentally cutting himself with a scalpel that was used in an autopsy. And suddenly, it just clicks. The doctors were coming straight from the morgue, working on cadavers, and then going to deliver babies without washing their hands. They were unknowingly carrying death on their hands. The fix? So simple. He made everyone wash their hands, and the death rate just plummeted.
But here's the kicker. This is the crazy part. The medical community wasn't thrilled. They were outraged. They completely rejected his discovery. And why? Well, because if they admitted that hand washing was the answer, they would also have to admit that they had been the problem all along. They would rather let women keep dying than face the fact that they were the cause. And that right there is the perfect metaphor for self-deception. So how does this disease of perception get started in our own lives? It's not a virus from a cadaver. The book says it begins with a single, tiny, everyday moment, an act called self-betrayal. Okay, so this right here is the germ. Self-betrayal is that little moment where you feel an impulse to do something decent or helpful for another person, and you choose to ignore it. The book gives this really simple example. A father named Theo hears his baby crying in the middle of the night. He gets that feeling, that sense that he should probably get up, but he doesn't. That choice right there is a self-betrayal.
And that simple choice kicks off this immediate, destructive chain reaction. So first, he has the sense of what he should do. Second, he makes the choice to ignore it. That's the betrayal. But what happens next, step 4, this is the most important part, justification. To feel okay about what he just did, his brain instantly starts cooking up a story to make it okay. A story that sounds like, "Hey, why isn't my wife getting up? She's so lazy, she has no idea how hard I work."
This need to justify our actions is where the self-deception really takes root. You see, to make ourselves feel right for doing something wrong, we have to start seeing the world through a warped lens. We start creating lies, both about ourselves and about other people.
And this distorted view just completely rewrites reality. In that split second, Theo paints himself as the hero, the hardworking, underappreciated martyr. And his wife? Well, she's suddenly the villain. Lazy, unsupportive, totally ungrateful. He's created this little drama in his head where he's the victim, all to justify the simple act of staying in bed. And if we do this enough, this pattern becomes our default setting. It usually falls into one of 2 boxes. There's the better than box, where we feel superior, important, and constantly mistreated. This makes us feel resentful and entitled. But there's also a worse than box. This is where we see ourselves as inferior,
not good enough, and powerless. And that's also a form of self-deception, because it still justifies our inaction and leads to things like fear and jealousy.
Okay, so if we're all susceptible to this trap, what's the way out? Well, if self-deception is a disease of perception, then the cure has to be a new way of seeing. And it's not about learning a new technique or changing your behavior, it's a much more fundamental shift than that.
The book boils it down to shifting from an inward mindset to an outward mindset. When we're trapped in self-deception, we're in that inward mindset. We see other people as objects. They're either vehicles to help us get what we want, obstacles that are in our way, or they're just completely irrelevant. The cure or the way out is to adopt an outward mindset, to start seeing other people, as human beings with their own needs, their own hopes, and their own challenges that are every bit as real and as valid as ours.
And that is maybe the most crucial point of this whole idea. You can't just fake your way out of this. You can't learn a new communication script or follow a 5-step plan for being nice. If, deep down, you still see other people as objects, none of your behaviors will feel authentic anyway. The real change has to happen on a much deeper level. It has to happen in how you see the world, not just in what you do.
So I want to leave you with this one thought. Think about your biggest challenge right now, that one person or that situation that causes you the most frustration and stress. And ask yourself honestly, at the very heart of that conflict, are you seeing a person with their own real struggles, or are you just seeing an obstacle standing in your way? The answer to that question might just change everything.